Today I'm going to be talking about how to seek the kingdom of God first. If you were tracking along with us, we're starting a new sermon series called Starting Right. It's basically a deep study on renewal through the life and leadership of King Josiah. The Bible reference is 2 Chronicles chapter 34, and for the entire month of January, we're going to be doing picking apart that book and that chapter and doing a study on just what Josiah did to start his country off right with God at that time. And so, first, we have to see Josiah's journey and how that all started. He became king when he was 8 years old, which is pretty young. But right at the ripe age of 16, he started seeking God. And that was probably the pinnacle and the turning point for his leadership and his rule over the land of Judah, because that's kind of when everything kick-started. All the reformation, all the change started from there. Any sort of starting right that happened from that point forward. And so, three questions that we have to ask ourselves when it comes to understanding how to seek God's kingdom first is this. First, why we want. Second, how you want it. And third, where do you go from here? All right. So first, why do I want? I'm going to give a big nod to James K.A. Smith's book, Desiring the Kingdom. That was probably the book that has shaped and formed not just my understanding of God's kingdom, but also just the understanding of myself and human nature and human beings as a whole. And his basic premise to start that book is that before us being thinking beings, we are actually loving beings. And that you are not what you think, but you are what you love. Case in point, I'm sure many of us, when we started this year, we made some sort of resolution about eating better, going to the gym more, reading more books, and staying off of social media. Those are all things that we think, right? But when it comes to actual implementation and living that out on a daily basis, you will probably more so go after what you want more than what you think. We all know what we think we should do, but it's more about what we desire to do. And that's basically his claim. And so we have to ask ourselves, why would we want anything in the first place? Why would I want that car that drove down the street? Why would I want that house that's down the block? Why do I want it? It's because we see it. Steve Jobs, he said that people don't know what they want. You have to show them. And I believe that this is very much the same case, that oftentimes we don't necessarily, it's not that we don't know how to seek the kingdom of God, but it's just because we haven't seen it. And the basic definitions of God's kingdom, I think, are too up here. They're too, they're just on another level. They're too conceptual. And one of those definitions is that it's God's rule and reign over people and places. It's not wrong. It's right. That is it. That is God's kingdom. But I don't necessarily feel it, and I don't necessarily see it. So I like James K. Smith's understanding of God's kingdom, that he says that whenever there's a vision for the kingdom of God, there's a vision for human flourishing. That I can see, that I can understand. And that's biblically sound, that when we think about God's kingdom, it is a picture and the futuristic, eternal picture of human flourishing on earth as it is in heaven. So why would you want this? Well, you want it because it's human flourishing. We all desire something in us to be flourishing in a way that we didn't flourish before. We want to be doing better. We want to grow. We want to be in a better place than we were last year. That's why we write these resolutions, and that's why we're seeking first. So in essence, seeking first the kingdom is desiring it first, wanting it. So why would you want anything in the first place? Like I said, you got to see it. You got to get a picture of God's kingdom here on earth. Second, how you want it. How do we go about this? Well, oftentimes I've noticed we will seek the kingdom of God first is because we are seeking something second. Let me explain. I confess I'm guilty of this. I will seek God's kingdom first because I'm in a bind. I will seek God's kingdom first because I need something for my kids. I will seek God's kingdom first because something tough is happening in ministry or in home. I will seek God's kingdom first because really what I want is the second thing after it. How you are supposed to want this is you are to seek first to seek first, simply put. But oftentimes we do the opposite. We seek first to actually seek second. Matthew 6:33 says this, that we are to seek the kingdom of God first, and all these things will be given unto us as well. And so oftentimes we flip it. We want all these things, but actually we're called to seek first the kingdom of God. So how you are supposed to want this is that you are to seek first in order to seek first. Lastly, where do you go from here? This is where it becomes really practical and just honest even with myself. If this is about desiring the kingdom and seeking the kingdom first, you have to start with your emotions. We oftentimes start with our thoughts. You have to start with your emotions. You have to start with your heart or your gut or whatever it is that you feel. And oftentimes we think about God's kingdom in places of comfort, in moments when we can kind of give him the time to do so, probably in your room, just studying the Bible or praying or so on. But I want us to start in those places of heightened emotion, those places where of deep struggle or deep joy. And when you start in those places, I believe that that's when it's actually more applicable, and that's when it's real life. So for example, for me, as a pastor, I have to have a lot of conversations, oftentimes either to comfort people or to confront people. And there are many times in the midst of those conversations where I literally do not know what to say next. There will be someone weeping in front of me, and I don't know how to comfort them. I'm not a naturally confrontational person to begin with, so it's already an awkward thing for me. There'll be times where I don't know how to confront this person, and I literally will not know what to say. And so those moments for me are very anxious. They're very oftentimes even scary because I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to hurt anybody, or I don't want someone to feel worse than they were before. So for me, those are very heightened emotions, or places of heightened emotions. And so in those moments, when this conversation is happening, I don't disassociate myself from the conversation, but in the back of my mind, something I repeat myself is these 4 words: God, I seek your kingdom. God, I seek your kingdom. And when I prioritize God's kingdom, then everything else usually falls into place. It doesn't mean that I get the results that I want, but it does mean that I have the peace, the joy, and the understanding and patience to be able to handle this conversation specifically. So, just in review, how do you seek the kingdom of God? First, you have to see it. You have to feel it. You have to know what it looks like. Second, you have to seek first in order to seek first. Don't seek second, seek first. And lastly, where do you go from here? Start with those places of heightened emotion, those places of deep depression and anxiety, those places that get you stressed out. Start with those places. Don't just start from the comfort of your own home. Lastly, guys, today won't you give God a chance? Because today I believe that he can do immeasurably more than you can ask or imagine. Excited for the next one. See you then.